Did not want to be part of showing the world a false image of America, and it was a very easy choice to make. I didn't have any money at the time. There was nothing they could take from me. Things are worth it.
Shaquille O'Neal once said it flat out. I hated him. Not disliked, not had issues with, hated. And Shaq wasn't alone. The world knew Kareem Abdul-Jabbar as a basketball legend, a champion, the all-time leading scorer. He won 6 championships. He was the most dominant player for nearly 2 decades. But behind the scenes, in locker rooms and press conferences and quiet moments between rivals, something darker was happening. 7 NBA legends developed serious beef with the captain. Not regular competition. Not the kind of respect between great athletes. Real hatred, real resentment that lasted decades. Today we're breaking down every feud, every moment of tension, every reason why being the greatest sometimes meant standing completely alone on the world's biggest stage. Kareem's life was defined by isolation. It started early. He converted to Islam. He became an activist in an era when athletes were expected to keep quiet and perform. He was an intellectual in a league built on entertainment and flash. He was an introvert in a profession that demanded you smile, sign autographs, be accessible. He wanted to be left alone to perfect his craft. Instead, the world demanded he be a symbol, a representative, a spokesperson. And when he refused, when he retreated into himself, people hated him for it. Let's get into it. And if you're already hooked on this story, give this video some hype. Seriously, it really helps push stories like this out to more NBA fans who love the real history. Now let's talk about the 7 men who clashed with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. First up is Wilt Chamberlain. When young Lou Alcindor first made waves in the basketball world, Wilt was actually helpful, like a mentor, a big brother figure. The Big Dipper took the young kid under his wing, showed him the ropes, gave him advice on how to navigate being a dominant force in a game that wasn't ready for you. But something changed. As Kareem started breaking Wilt's records, winning championships, becoming the undisputed greatest center in basketball, Wilt couldn't handle it. The man who had dominated the 1960s with superhuman athleticism now watched from the sidelines as Kareem surpassed him in every way that mattered. Wilt was the ultimate individualist. He chased numbers, stats, records. He had never fouled out of a game in his entire career. That was his thing, his badge of honor. But his teams, they didn't win consistently. Kareem was different. He valued team success over personal glory. He learned from John Wooden at UCLA that efficiency and teamwork mattered more than volume. Wilt started criticizing publicly. He called Kareem soft. He said Kareem was stealing money, playing past his prime in a watered-down league. He pointed out that younger, more athletic players couldn't compare to the competition Wilt faced. For years, this criticism festered. It ate at both men. Every year, Wilt would find a new angle to attack Kareem's legacy. Then came 1990. Kareem published his autobiography, Giant Steps. Inside was an open letter. Not just any letter. A public destruction of Wilt Chamberlain's character and legacy. Kareem didn't attack Wilt's talent. He couldn't. Wilt was too great for that. Instead, he attacked his heart. He attacked his competitiveness. He said Wilt was jealous. He pointed out that Wilt's championship teams never won back-to-back titles. They never showed consistency. Meanwhile, Kareem's Lakers dominated the 1980s, winning multiple championships in a row. The implication was clear. Wilt accumulated stats while Kareem accumulated rings. But it got worse. Kareem called Wilt a quitter. He said Wilt left his college team early. He said Wilt demanded trades when things got tough. Then came the line that would follow Wilt forever. Kareem wrote that people would remember him for winning with his teammates, for building something that lasted. And Wilt? You will be remembered as a whining crybaby and a quitter, stats and all. That stung hard. Kareem even called him Wilt Chamberlain in private correspondence, turning the Big Dipper into a schoolyard joke. The feud never healed. Wilt died in 1999 without reconciliation, without closure, without ever getting the final word against the man who had taken his throne. Next is Shaquille O'Neal. When Shaq arrived in Los Angeles in 1996, he was meant to be the new king of the Lakers center position. George McCann, Wilt, Kareem, now Shaq. He wanted to be part of that lineage. He desperately wanted approval from the legend. But Kareem gave him silence. Complete silence. For 3 decades. Shaq would later say that Kareem never talked to him, never offered advice, never acknowledged his existence. To Shaq, who thrived on validation, who built his career on being bigger than life, that silence felt like rejection. It felt like hate. The media made it worse by constantly comparing them. They'd point out Shaq's weakness at the free throw line. They'd mention his conditioning issues. And every time Kareem would make a public comment, "You're wasting your potential. You could be so much better if you stayed in shape, if you worked on your footwork." To Shaq, these weren't words of wisdom. There were attacks from an old man who didn't understand the new game. Kareem would later explain his side. He said he wasn't withholding mentorship out of hate. He said he was waiting for Shaq to reach his potential before offering support. He lived a certain way. He practiced martial arts. He treated his body as a temple. Watching Shaq come to training camp overweight, relying on raw talent instead of discipline, frustrated him. Once Shaq finally won those 3 straight championships, once he got serious, Kareem said he was a Hall of Famer. But for nearly 30 years, that silence hung between them. Then in February 2023, everything changed. LeBron James broke Kareem's all-time scoring record. The basketball world held its breath. What would happen when these two finally addressed each other on national television? Shaq spoke first. He told Kareem that not having his approval was actually the best thing that ever happened. It made him hungry to prove himself. And then Shaq did something extraordinary. He said, "I love you. I will never ever have beef with the great Kareem Abdul-Jabbar." Kareem responded with warmth that had been missing for 3 decades. But the damage was done. For Shaq, that silence had felt like the worst kind of hate. Now we get to Bill Laimbeer. This is where the hate became physical and raw. Laimbeer was the villain of the bad boy Detroit Pistons. He was nothing like Kareem. Kareem's basketball was beautiful, elegant. The skyhook was unblockable, perfect, requiring touch and finesse and years of practice. Laimbeer was a bruiser, a flopper, a guy who would throw elbows and act innocent afterward. He'd step on feet, shove hard, instigate confrontations, then back away looking like he did nothing wrong. For Kareem, who had survived the violent NBA of the 1970s, Laimbeer represented everything wrong with how the game was evolving. Basketball was becoming a thug's game, a brawler's game, and Laimbeer was leading the charge. Their hatred reached its peak in the 1988 NBA Finals. Lakers versus Pistons. The series was brutal. 7 games of finesse against brutality. In Game 6, with the Pistons leading and about to win the championship, the moment arrived. Kareem launched his skyhook. The whistle blew. A foul on Laimbeer? They still call it the Phantom Skyhook foul. Laimbeer and the Pistons swore he played clean defense, that it was a gift to the aging legend. But Kareem went to the free throw line with 14 seconds left. He made both shots. Lakers won. Game 7 happened. Lakers won the championship. And Laimbeer never forgot it. Years later, Kareem would list the players he never respected. Laimbeer's name always came up. Too dirty, too dangerous, too disrespectful to the game. They represented opposite philosophies, West Coast finesse versus Midwest brutality, and they hated each other for it. Then there's Kent Benson. This story is the most shocking and visceral. October 18th, 1977, the Lakers faced the Milwaukee Bucks. Kareem was returning to face the team that drafted him years before, the team he had forced a trade away from. But the Bucks had a plan. Kent Benson, the first overall pick in the draft, a college star from Indiana University, was drafted specifically to replace Kareem and fill the void he had left. The media called him the Great White Hope, a clean-cut, hard-working center from the heartland, the opposite of Kareem in every way. 2 minutes into the game, it happened. Benson threw an elbow at Kareem's gut. It was dirty. It was meant to rattle him. But Kareem didn't stay rattled. He gathered himself, turned, and threw a right hook directly at Benson's face. The punch was devastating. It shattered Benson's jaw, knocked him to the ground. But the force broke Kareem's hand too. Benson's debut was ruined. Kareem was ejected. He missed 20 games. He got the biggest fine in NBA history at that time. The fallout was enormous. Kareem went from being a great player to being seen as dangerous, violent, a man who would sucker punch a rookie. Kareem later reflected on it. It was frightening, he said. I could have killed him. He realized he needed to control his temper. From that point on, he wore goggles. He adopted an emotionless facade. He became the stoic giant rather than the explosive force. Benson eventually forgave him. His Christian faith, he said, taught him about forgiveness. But the shadow lingered. Benson wasn't just the #1 pick. He was the guy Kareem flattened. The hate there was mutual and situational. Benson hated what Kareem did. Kareem hated that he let a rookie bait him. Rick Barry comes next. This one is different because Rick Barry was the guy everyone hated, universally disliked across the league. He was arrogant, selfish, abrasive to an extreme degree. His own teammates wouldn't back him up in fights. When a brawl broke out, his own guys would step back and let him fend for himself because they couldn't stand him. When Kareem looked at Barry, he saw everything he despised about selfishness and disrespect and ego run unchecked. Barry made racially insensitive comments constantly. He criticized teammates publicly, humiliated them. He was a blight on the sport, a cancer that infected every locker room he entered. Barry's disrespect for Kareem was personal and public. He spent his broadcasting career saying that Wilt was better than Kareem, that Kareem wasn't the greater player, that Wilt had all-around skills that Kareem lacked. Kareem knew this was wrong and it infuriated him. He listed Barry among the players he never respected, not because of his talent, Kareem acknowledged Barry could play, but because of his character. There was also something deeper, a racial component. Barry represented an old guard of white stars who felt comfortable minimizing black superstars. Kareem, a Muslim and activist, saw through it. He knew what Barry represented in the bigger picture. Elvin Hayes comes next. The story starts in 1968, the game of the century. Lou Alcindor and UCLA's 47-game winning streak faced Elvin Hayes and the University of Houston. Over 50,000 fans watched. Alcindor was injured, suffering from a scratched cornea. Hayes dominated him, 39 points. Houston won 71-69. In one moment, Hayes proved he could beat the unbeatable. That moment never left them. It defined their entire relationship. When they faced each other in the NBA, there was ice between them. Ice cold. Cold handshakes. Avoiding eye contact. Refusing to acknowledge each other's presence. Hayes felt he never got credit because the media loved Kareem and elevated him to a higher status. He complained that no player in 10 years had done more for his team. Yet he was criticized constantly while Kareem got praised and adored. Hayes won only one championship in his career. Kareem won 6. Hayes scored over 27,000 points, but was never viewed as the king. Kareem was the king. That resentment ate at Hayes forever. Hayes was the only player who could look Kareem in the eye and say, "I beat you," when the whole world was watching. That fact likely infuriated the ultra-competitive Kareem for decades. They eventually developed mutual respect in retirement, but their playing days were defined by refusal. Neither would give an inch. Neither would admit the other's superiority. Finally, Rudy Tomjanovich. This one is complicated. Rudy didn't have a personal feud with Kareem beforehand, but Kareem's actions during a brutal altercation set in motion a tragedy that nearly killed him. December 9th, 1977, Lakers versus Rockets. A fight broke out at midcourt. Kermit Washington and Kevin Cunnert were scuffling. Then Kareem entered the fray. He grabbed Cunnert in a bear hug, pinning his arms, preventing him from fighting back. This was enforcing, making sure his teammate had the advantage. Rudy saw the fight. He sprinted toward it, trying to be a peacemaker. Kermit Washington saw a blur of red jersey. He pivoted and threw a punch with his entire body's force. Because Kareem was holding Cunnert, the lane was clear. The punch connected with Rudy's face with sickening force. It shattered his face, dislodged his skull from his spine. Spinal fluid leaked into his mouth. The sound was horrific. Kareem stood inches away. Years later, he described it in chilling detail. "I'll never forget that sound. Like a melon landing on concrete." Rudy's career nearly ended. His life nearly ended. He got a massive settlement, but the trauma remained. He and the Rockets blamed the Lakers. They blamed Abdul-Jabbar. Had Kareem not held Kunnert, the geometry would have been different. Tomjanovich's resentment was directed at the culture of violence. Abdul-Jabbar was a part of that culture. He participated in it. He enforced it. Years later, Tomjanovich moved past the bitterness. He forgave Washington, but the sight of the Lakers and their captain served as a reminder of the night he nearly died. This incident, combined with the punch on Benson earlier that season, cemented 1977 as the year Kareem was most vilified by the league. So what's the pattern here? Isolation. That's the through line connecting all of these stories. Wilt hated him for stealing the crown and exposing that stats without wins mean nothing. Shaq resented him for withholding praise, for refusing to validate a different approach to the game. Laimbeer fought him as a symbol of softness, waging physical war against his elegant finesse. Benson and Tomjanovich were casualties of the violent culture Kareem had to survive in and sometimes enforce. Barry and Hayes clashed with him over personality, respect, and their own wounded egos. Each feud was different. Each had its own character and its own emotional truth, but they all stemmed from the same root. Kareem was alone, and people hated him for it. Kareem's response to this multi-front assault was to retreat further. He didn't trash talk. He wrote open letters. He didn't seek media love. He sought historical context. He became a statue, cold, intellectual, unreachable, untouchable. The hate directed at Kareem rarely was about him as a person. It was about what he represented, an intellectual black man who refused to perform for the camera, who refused to smile and entertain, a player who broke every record without asking permission or validation from his peers, a bridge between the chaotic, racist NBA of the 1960s and the polished global product of the 1990s. He was a change agent, and change always generates resentment. In the end, Kareem outlasted them all, every single one. He wrote the final word on Wilt, literally, in that absolutely devastating open letter. He reconciled with Shaq decades later on national television, showing growth and emotional wisdom that the younger Kareem lacked. He survived the punches of the 1970s, the political battles, the racism, the expectations. He retired as the undisputed captain of the greatest dynasty in basketball history. The hate was just friction, Friction generated by his unstoppable momentum. The lonelier you stand, the more people resent you. The more you break the rules, the more you threaten the established order. But the taller you stand, the longer you last. And Kareem stood tallest of them all. Maybe being hated was the price of being unstoppable.